If you were to quickly skim through the videos on the channel, the two types that would probably stand out the most would be the videos where I'm being chased, and those where I restrict myself to play as a certain character. With both of those in mind, along with the mock-up image I made a few weeks ago, today I will try to find out, can you beat Fallout New Vegas as Private Kowalski? As is the norm for character runs, I first need to go over exactly what I'm allowed to do, and thankfully, Kowalski is of course from New Vegas, so that makes things a lot easier. Basically, I will only be allowed to use the weapons he carries on his person, those being a service rifle and a combat knife. This of course also extends to armor, meaning I will need to find a set of Ncr bandolier armor as soon as possible. As for the character's morals and how they would handle certain situations, well, he is an Ncr soldier after all, so anything that benefits the Ncr seems like a good idea. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. I am not the best when it comes to New Vegas' character creator, so I end up spending a lot longer than I initially intended on just trying to get a face that even somewhat resembled Private Kowalski. Like every character in the game, Kowalski has his own set of special stats, which conveniently enough is just 5s across the board. I need to assign at least 5 points on top of that, so I choose to dump them into agility given how ruthless he can be when tracking down people across the entirety of the Mojave. He also has predetermined tag skills which are explosives, guns, and melee weapons. I won't have access to any type of explosives this run, but 2 out of 3 tag skills isn't bad. And finally, to finish things up, I just go without any traits for a change. Leaving the safety of Doc Mitchell's house, I begin to follow the road to Prim, as conveniently enough 2 of the 3 items I require are in and around the town. I don't attack anything on the way there, and to my surprise, I manage to slip past the Ncr soldier at Prim without him talking to me. Sadly, he stops chasing me anyway once I move a little further into the town, so I guess there goes that challenge idea. Oh well, good news though, I am able to find the exact set of Ncr armor that I need for the run. It's medium armor and offers a decent amount of protection, so things could definitely be worse. I don't have a reliable way to gain access to a service rifle without committing war crimes on my fellow soldiers, so for now I'll have to make do with a combat knife that can be found inside the Vicky and Vance casino. While I could easily stab my way to Beagle, I figured it would be best to complete the build before starting too many quests. That isn't to say I just pocketed the knife and didn't use it. In fact, it got a lot of use as I chased around some rad scorpions who clearly knew who they were dealing with. I will say I truly did feel like Kowalski as I ran after the scorpion and had to watch as it ever so slowly got further and further away from me. For those who haven't figured it out yet, I'm making my way to the Mojave outpost to help Ranger Jackson with the ants, as in doing so I will be rewarded with a service rifle along with a decent amount of ammo for it. Ants, no matter the size, are easy enough to dispatch with a knife as effective as this, so it doesn't take long before I can truly roleplay as the world's greatest tracker. With all the gear I will need for the rest of the run, I make my way back to Good Springs to help the townsfolk, as well as to murder some powder gangers for the glory of the Republic. I'm actually able to enlist the help of all of the residents thanks to having explosives as a tag skill, as well as buying an appropriate magazine to get the necessary barter skill to persuade Chet. As you may expect, the service rifle makes short work of the convicts, probably because most of them are dressed like strippers. Right as I was about to leave town, I was approached by a friendly face. The temptation was there to just kill him, but it felt like he understood me in a way.
Deep inside, we're kindred spirits. You and
I mentioned it before, but seeing how one of Kowalski's defining features is his ability to chase a man for days on end, I figured it would make the most sense to actively work to track down Benny for once. In other words, I am going to follow the story as close as possible to the way the game intends you to do on your first playthrough. That means it's back to Prim again as I see about clearing out the convicts to rescue everyone's favourite little deputy. Once he's freed from his binds, I offer to find a sheriff, and against my better judgment, I don't just go reboot Prim Slim. At the very least, I've already helped out the Mojave outpost, so all that was required of me was to deliver some messages. Now that the Ncr had more land to ruin, I pressed on towards Nipton, where I dispensed more justice on the powder gangers by getting rid of Swanwick and boxcars. Of course, they weren't the only faction in Nipton that deserved to die, as the Legion in the centre of town were up next. Shooting at a distance and momentarily from stealth proved to be a smart idea, not only so I could pick them off outside their effective range, but also so Volpes wouldn't spawn until I got closer. This led to me taking out all of his men before he even showed his face, and when it came down to a duel between the two of us, I of course emerged victorious thanks to the power of gun. The road to Novak is a short and uneventful one, but I will bless you with this footage where I somehow missed 6 shots in a row, in VATS, that all had above a 90% hit rate. This is some straight up XCOM levels of bullshit. Making my way for the dinosaur was priority number 1 in Novak, 1 to meet up with Manny and get my next objective, and 2 to restock on ammo from Cliff. Thankfully, this is New Vegas and not Fallout 3, so I don't have to worry about any super tanky ghouls as I can easily carve a path to the Repcon test site. Inside the facility, I need to make my way past a few more ferals before I can have a conversation with some of the more talkative ghouls and an actual insane person. The task they have for me involves more killing, so I'm at the very least qualified for the job. All they need me to do for now is kill the Nightkin that have holed up in the basement of the facility. They are also relatively weak Nightkin as far as I can tell, so no troubles here. My agility of 10 begins to shine here as I can fire 6 shots into one Nightkin's head before they ever really get a chance to react. This even goes for their leader Davison as well. He made things even easier by sprinting full pelt into his desk rather than rush me, allowing for multiple easy headshots. To really add salt to the wound, I even disrespected his beloved Antler, who he seemed to care so much about. After making sure the last of the Nightkin were dead, I stumbled upon Harlan, the semi-friendly ghoul, who asked if I could help him find his ghoul friend that was taken prisoner by the mutants. I say semi-friendly because almost as soon as we stop talking, he decides trying to kill me is in fact a better course of action. This plan of his didn't get very far as I returned fire, and due to him being part zombie, one shot to the head is all it takes to be rid of the problem. After this, I report the job well done back to Jason, but he has one last task for me before I can press on, and that is to find the necessary materials and fuel so that the ghouls can launch themselves to God knows where. Acquiring said materials is incredibly straightforward, as I just grab a few of the model rockets from the gift shop in Novak for the fuel, and as for the control module, I can pay far too much money for it outside of town by bartering with old Lady Gibson. I then return the materials to the not ghoul before standing proud as I watch them fly off into the sky, and really hope they don't crash into any nearby war memorials. Speaking of memorials, as I report the good news to Manny, he informs me that Benny and the Cans were heading for Boulder City, so I'm off there next. Of course, when I arrive, I am met with a familiar face, that being the much less tanned version of myself. There was a temptation to kill him, so I would be the only Kowalski, but that didn't seem like the right thing to do, at least not yet. What did seem fitting was heading into Boulder City and rescuing the NCR hostages from the Great Cans. A sneak attack is powerful enough to take out the initial Can, thus allowing me to walk in and release the privates. Hearing gunshots and the sound of brains hitting the floor, the nearby NCR troopers rush in to help clear out the rest of the Cans. It's on me to enter the nearby building to finish off Jessup, which is actually easier than ever as he was reluctant to shoot me for whatever reason. Not going to complain about an easy kill though. With that, the day was saved, and after finding a note on Jessup's body pointing me to New Vegas, I began to head out, although not before putting a strategic bullet in the side of the nearby war memorial to convince the second Kowalski to aid me in my adventures. While he may just be chasing me to scold me for my potential war crimes, he will also act as a sort of companion in that he will attack any hostile enemies so long as they are not allied with the NCR. Will this actually play into the rest of the run in any way? Probably not, but I thought it was too good an opportunity to pass up. Bighorners are about the only thing worth killing between here and Freeside, so not a lot to talk about in the journey to the tops. Storming the tops, guns blazing, did not seem like the optimal way to handle the situation for once, so I opted to actually try something different for a change. Usually if you have enough evidence or a silver tongue, you can convince Swank that Benny is planning to double cross them, which then leads to a series of events where you can be left alone with him and can assassinate him with no issues. I of course lack the speech skill to do this, so instead I can present Swank with the lighter I got from Jessup, which then allows me to carry my weapons when in the casino. Next I approach Benny and offer to meet and talk with him, full well aware that he's going to send guards into the room trying to kill me. Well, their little pea shooters cannot stand up to the pure patriotism that is my service rifle, and as such I'm able to fight my way out no worse for wear. Leaving the tops, and I'm told to meet with Crocker and get my assignment to ally the boomers with the NCR, but I have more pressing matters to attend to as Benny has fled the strip and currently on his way to Cottonwood Cove. I of course do not require the platinum chip to progress with the NCR's questline, but it wouldn't seem right to do an NCR run and not assault the fort. The nearest location I have to the fort is Ranger Station Charlie, where I'm surprised to learn they haven't been reduced to mulch yet by the Legion. Speaking of the Legion, there are a few of them skulking around the area, so I make a point to go and hunt them down for some easy experience. There aren't all that many of them, so it was a straightforward encounter. The only thing out of the ordinary was when one of them decided to start T-posing to assert his dominance. Intimidating as it was, it did not stop a bullet. To add to that weirdness, after dispatching the Legion's version of Christ, I went to continue on the path to the cove, when all of a sudden, the game randomly played the sound effect of a door opening. Never change, New Vegas. Anyway, I take my usual route down to Cottonwood Cove so I can have the high ground, as well as the ability to stealthily take out a few of the Legion soldiers. I ended up not staying on the ridge for very long, as most of them were outside of the service rifle's effective range. It's not a big deal though, as there's plenty of places to find cover in and around the camp, so long as I'm careful. I was smart enough to stock up on a decent amount of armor-piercing rounds before coming here, just to make things a little bit easier, and also in the hopes of saving enough ammo to assault the actual fort straight afterwards. Spoiler alert, that did not happen, as I was forced to go on another shopping spree before I could meet Caesar. I made sure to hit up just about every single person that I could think of that sold weapons and ammo. I even made my way to the 188 trading post as my gun skill was more than high enough now to have access to Alexander's inventory. While there, the glitches continued to pile up as Samuel decided he loves his stall so much that he would in fact merge himself with it for all eternity. Before heading into the Lion's Den, I also made sure to get the most out of the reloading benches, as I've been increasing my repair skill for quite a while now. With as much ammo as I could muster, I entered the fort and began to throw down. My first attempt did not exactly go according to plan. But to be fair, that's more down to my own stupidity in the moment than failing to prepare for the encounter, as I decided to switch to my combat knife in close quarters because everyone knows the best way to deal with melee attackers is to fight them on their own terms with your own, even worse melee weapon. Next attempt, and when you know it, sticking with the firearm with armor-piercing bullets was in fact the much better option, as it very easily launched their heads from their bodies. Once the nobodies were dealt with, the plan was to head into Caesar's tent and rewrite history by replacing those multiple stab wounds with a whole bunch of bullet holes. This plan nearly worked as well. The only reason it didn't was because the most loyal dog ever jumped in the way last second to take the killing blow. It's not a huge setback, it just means I now have to lead the Legion punching enthusiasts around the camp in a conga line like it's a game of Nazi zombies. As always, this method proved rather effective, even more so when I started to rapidly mash the trigger as fast as I could, which resulted in me getting a triple kill on Caesar and 2 of his bodyguards. With the Legion now in need of new leadership and the fort in shambles, you would think this would be the prime time to deal with Benny, and you would be right. But I figured that seeing how I'll be taking out Mr. House anyway, that I might as well just make things even worse for the man by making him watch as I effortlessly destroy his sleeping Securitron army. If he really cared that much about them, he would have left more than a handful of turrets and protectrons to guard the generators. Just while I'm on the topic of the bunker, something strange I noticed is that I was able to insert the platinum chip into the console to get down here, despite the fact I never got the chip from Benny, and when I checked Caesar's body, it was also nowhere to be found. I think the game inserts it into your inventory at a certain point regardless of what you do, because this also happened in my New Vegas with only stolen items video after I was kidnapped by the Brotherhood. No use getting caught up thinking about the inner workings of the game, as now it was time to decide the fate of everyone's favourite friend. While killing him is of course fun, I decided that as an NCR soldier, Kowalski would probably much rather free a Legion prisoner than outright execute them, so I opted to just untie him and let him go. With the Cove and Fort devoid of all life, it was now time to start the NCR's questline. I didn't have a particular order in mind for the factions I wanted to visit, so I just went along with my current quest and met up with the Boomers. I don't have a lot to say about them, as their quests are no different than normal. If I could stab ants to death at level 2, then I can most certainly exterminate them with my overabundance of surplus ammo at level 11. From one group of explosive-loving maniacs to another, before heading back to Crocker, I found my way to the NCRCF to give the powder gangers a piece of my mind. As I am fairly certain it was intended for the player to come here right after saving or destroying good springs at the beginning of the game, not a single one of the powder gangers is able to take more than 3 shots before going down. The only one who was left alive was Myers, as he was not hostile, and I always liked the cut of his jib. I'm always one to get sidetracked, so yet again I held off on going to see the ambassador as I made a detour to shut down House and Securitrons permanently. Turns out the TVs on wheels can't really do anything if you just stand right in front of them and push your face into their screens. Now, I was planning to actually just disable House's control, but even after talking to him and checking the console, I was never given the option, so a bullet will have to suffice instead. Up next on the agenda is dealing with the Kings. While assassinating Pacer is by far the quickest and most simple option, I, for some reason, decided to go through with the entirety of the King's questline just so I could use his favour to stop the attacks on the NCR. You may think, because of the extra effort I just put in with the Kings, that I will be going out of my way to help the other factions that I will come into contact with while helping the NCR. And you would be wrong. It's nearly been a full month since I last went on a bloodthirsty rampage through Gomorrah, and I simply cannot wait any longer. As always, this filled me with a type of joy that I just cannot put into words as I watch their feeble attempts to try and stop me. It's also the right thing to do, as why else would the game give me positive karma with each kill? After I had my fill, and by that I mean there was not a single murder alive within a 10-mile radius, I figured now was as good a time as any to see about meeting the Brotherhood of Steel. While I was at Nellis, I was able to grab the holotape to allow me quick access to the bunker. The only problem is, even by doing this, the Brotherhood are still hostile due to my NCR uniform. That meant that sneaking my way down and stealing the keys from the Brotherhood's leaders was not going to be possible, and instead, I would need to fight my way through. Being fresh off my genocide run of the Outer Worlds, I still had some strategies in mind when it came to dealing with multiple strong opponents. Just like that video, I was able to find a place to hide myself in between the wall and a storage container, and began a war of attrition with the onslaught of paladins coming my way. Once more, my maxed out agility stat proved to be the deciding factor in this encounter. By waiting until my action points were full, I could barely peek my head around the corner just enough to have line of sight on one of them, and thanks to that, could then rapidly fire 6 bullets straight into their heads with relative ease. I picked up the finesse perk just before this as well for a higher crit chance, just to help even the playing field. After a while, I was able to take out the last member of the greeting party and could make my way down into the bunker. Oddly enough, the named members of the Brotherhood always seem to be weaker than most of the unnamed paladins, so outgunning Ramos at the entrance is actually quite easy. As I had already made it this far, I figured I could probably fight my way through the Brotherhood on the first floor as well. Short and to the point, that did not work. No matter though, running past them was both the faster and safer option, as they never seem to follow you once you transition to the bottom level of the base. The only tough enemies on this floor are McNamara's 2 bodyguards, but they were a cakewalk compared to the small army that awaits me upstairs. On the topic of the Elder, he definitely had the most anticlimactic death of any important NPC in this run, as he didn't even get a chance to attack before I'd riddled him with bullets. Harden also goes down thanks to some lucky crits, as well as getting the jump on him while he was by himself. All that leaves is Head Scribe Taggart, who is a literal one-shot. With the key cards in hand, I activate the self-destruct sequence and just about managed to make it out alive before being overrun by 10 soldiers, although I didn't help matters by accidentally closing myself inside a door during the escape. With that out of the way, I went straight to Hoover Dam, which was a mistake as I completely forgot to visit the Great Khans before doing so. I ended up just heading north from Good Springs as it was the closest fast travel point I had to Red Rock Canyon. I normally would just take the safer route west of Freeside, but due to all the legionaries I have murdered, I have over 20 doses of anti-venom on my person, so I am more than able to just tough it out. My plan was to see if I could put Regis in charge by way of political assassination, just to switch things up a bit from how I would usually go about this part. However, while the nameless Khans don't seem bothered by my presence, all the important members want me dead. It's a bit disappointing, but on the bright side, I have plenty of bullets to spare, so it's not like I was in for a hard time. I may not be able to engage in the assassination of the leader of a rival faction, but I can at the very least prevent the one on my own. Once you know who the assassins are, this quest can be completed in a matter of minutes. This time I didn't even bother to confront the Legion sniper, I just handed Grant the detonator I found on the engineer, and let the Rangers handle the rest as it's far above my pay grade. With that, it was time for the second battle of Hoover Dam, and I couldn't think of a more fitting place to finish Kowalski's story. Because, after all,
My brother died at the Battle of Hoover Dam.
Backed up by many NCR soldiers and rangers, fighting across the top of the dam is never a problem. One good thing though was before making it to the Legate's camp, I was able to relieve some stress by playing a round of Legion Whack-A-Mole, facing down the Legate, and it only took 3 attempts. Granted, they were quite varied in how they went. First try and it's about what you would expect. I get absolutely swarmed by Legion soldiers from all angles, to the point where I was getting stun locked constantly and couldn't even raise my weapon to fight back. This lackluster attempt ended whenever I got knocked down by the soldier with a marksman carbine, and rather than watch Kowalski be torn limb from limb, I just loaded back to before the fight began. Attempt number 2 starts off well, as I'm able to get a sneak attack on the Legate while he's distracted by the 2 NCR troopers. I am able to lower his health to the point where he calls in reinforcements again, but unlike before, things are actually going better, even if it doesn't seem that way. I thought I got lucky whenever Lanius threw a grenade into a group of his own men, as it would have made killing them a lot easier. Unbeknownst to me though, the Legate was clearly playing 4D chess here, as the explosive of his grenade caused the game to crash, ending this attempt. Finally, for the last attempt, and it was just luck incarnate. Once again I was able to get the sneak attack off on the Legate with my armor-piercing rounds, but after this, a few of the following shots also just so happened to crit, bringing him down to below half health, and to the point where he will sheath his sword and momentarily retreat. This was the best possible thing that could happen though, as during this he turned his back on me, making me hidden by the game's logic, and allowing my final shot in that to be another sneak attack critical that took him out for good. To say that I was shocked by this turn of events is an understatement. To be fair though, I wasn't the only one, as the game also took a while to register that the Legate had been killed. The best part of this was that since he died so fast, the game never called in his reinforcements, so after I took out his 2 Praetorians, I made my way for the gate, met with Oliver, finishing the game, and proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas as Private Kowalski. Dumb fun and surprisingly quick and clean for a run mainly focusing on a gun that I personally never remember being all that good. I also never even considered that wearing faction armor the entire playthrough would have ended up being the most difficult rule of all, due to it forcing that fight with the Brotherhood of Steel. Regardless, that's coming in this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe to one of these videos every week. My name is Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see you all in the next video.